Okay, so 2024. Yeah, that was a very good year for us Sonic fans. Sonic Team, Sega, Shadow himself, just a good year all around. Just an entire year reminding us why Shadow the Hedgehog is cool and one of the best Sonic characters. And this was one of the best years in the Sonic franchise? Like, ever? Like, the entire year was just a build up to two massive things for Sonic. Those being Sonic X Shadow Generations and Sonic Movie 3. Two of the best things to happen in this franchise since 2011. With some of the greatest marketing and merchandising all themed around Shadow the Hedgehog. And you know all that marketing worked. I was never the biggest Shadow fan until this year came around and had Shadow himself whack me over the head and tell me,
"I'm the coolest."
But what if the Year of Shadow was not successful? And was in 2013. And not about Shadow the Hedgehog, but instead about Luigi. Oh yeah, that did happen. And to anyone who was not Nintendo, it was a pretty good year. Just kind of underwhelming. But still fondly remembered. But really, as a year dedicated to celebrating Luigi, I wouldn't say it was all that good. Especially when compared to the fearless Year of Shadow, which is what we are doing today. A comparison between the Year of Luigi and the fearless Year of Shadow. And we are going to do this based off a point system. So we're going to have a bunch of categories, we will compare the two, and whichever one I think better will get a point. Whichever one has more points at the end is the definitive best year, because I am not wrong. Oh, and before we get into this, I would just like to say thank you for getting my last video to 18k. And, well, leaving 669 likes. Those help a lot. And 32 dislikes. Those also help a lot, believe it or not. And 175 comments of rather encouraging messages, helpful tips, and it was just a pleasant surprise to wake up one day and just see my video popping off for some reason. So, thank you! Yes. Possibly the thing the company would find most appealing when they start a massive celebration like this: merchandising! Of course, neither Luigi or Shadow missed this opportunity, and let's start with Luigi's merchandise, which most of Luigi's merch seems to have been on Club Nintendo. Things such as the Year of Luigi sound selection, containing 30 different songs all based on Luigi's history. Let's just give a listen. Leave it to Sega to do what Nintendo don't. But the disc contains songs such as Professor Egad's Laboratory, Robot L-Type Battle, Luigi's Mansion Stadium, Size Up Your Enemy, and The Ultimate Show. Oh, and you've never heard of this? I don't blame you. This was only available on Club Nintendo, and only available for those living in Japan. And even then, it's not really the greatest. It's 30 songs you can already just find on YouTube. Though, I guess at the time, Nintendo made that difficult. And the box art? Yeah, this is just a bunch of previous Luigi renders and artwork slapped on a green background. And speaking of Luigi artwork on a green background, maybe you'll want this Year of Luigi poster, which was part of a 3-poster set you could get as a Platinum Award for Club Nintendo on July 2013. At least this one was not exclusive to Japan, but it's really not that good of a poster either. Some other weird Club Nintendo things you could get is a pin, if you bought New Super Luigi U, and oh, you're not interested in the pin? Well, how about a coin? And a small green bag to go with it. Well, for 1,500 stars on European Club Nintendo, and 1,250 stars on the Australian Club Nintendo site, you can get the Luigi coin and its small green bag or perhaps this Luigi 3DS case, which also was exclusive to Japan. But it comes with a puzzle that shares the same design as the one on the sound selection, just bigger and with more Luigi artwork. Or what about this pen and this notepad? Or Dr. Luigi cleaning cloths? And, alright, maybe none of those quite tickled your fancy. Well, how about this Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon diorama? Well, for 1,500 coins if you're American, and 7,000 stars for the Europeans, which, yeah, it looks really good. And out of all the Club Nintendo stuff, I think I would probably want the diorama the most. Though, back when it originally came out, they were in very short numbers and were gone very quickly, only to return in February 2014 and once again and were also gone very quickly. And of course, there was much more merchandise such as mugs, phone cases, shirts, hoodies, the usual. But we also had the Luigi Nendroid. And I mean, yeah, it's an Nendroid. It comes with Luigi, some poses, a pipe, a bullet bill, and a Goomba. And our last bit of merch is this special Luigi Edition 3DS XL, which would come with Mario & Luigi Dream Team pre-installed right on the 4GB SD card. And finally, you know the Chicago L trains? Man, I wonder what L stands for. Oh! The Luigi train. Yes, for I think August 13th to September 8th, one of the Chicago L trains was kitted out on the outside and inside to green and Luigi themed. And you got to meet Luigi himself! And this was done to advertise specifically new Super Luigi U. In fact, most people passing through were given a hands-on trial of the game. Which, you know what? Kitting out an entire train is pretty epic advertising, and I think it would be pretty difficult to beat that. Honestly, you'd need something pretty freaking cool to beat that. Okay, that'll do it. Of course, the Fearless Year of Shadow also has merch, just a little less. But maybe they're just better. Our first thing is these 3 chibi Shadow pins at Gamescom. Or perhaps a panel featuring Takashi Iizuka, Kirk Thornton, you know, Shadow's voice actor, and Stephanie Sheh, known for her role as Xena. I also guess Maria. There was more Shadow content at the Sonic Symphony World Tour, such as All Hail Shadow, Sonic and Shadow themed snow cups with a surprise character spoon of either Sonic, Shadow, Amy, Tails, or Knuckles, and a limited edition cup. Of course, we also got shirts, cups, phone cases, thrown pillows, and pop socket. We would all kind of expect those. All exclusive to Amazon. And we got a lot of designs such as the logo, coffee, this bear. On a cooler note, the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 promotional cartridge, sent out to content creators on the 21st of November. This was done to promote the film, being an actually functional Sega Genesis cartridge with a small game inside, and having a cheat code, which when entered would reveal the release date of Sonic Movie 3's final trailer. And this is technically the first official Sonic game since Sonic 3D Blast to be put on the Sega Genesis. There was an event at camps where you could meet Sonic. They of course made the Dark Rider reel, though it's not Shadow's exact motorcycle, just based off it. People could also buy the Sonic X Shadow Generations Collector's Edition, which came with the game, the DLC, an art book, metal case, novelty Dreamcast case, Chao, Sonic and Shadow statue, shoe keyrings, and a music disc. And then finally, Lego sets with set Shadow the Hedgehog Escape and set Shadow the Hedgehog, and the announcement of another set, Super Shadow vs. BioLizard. And yeah, that's about it for the Fearless Year of Shadow. Now, which one did this better? Honestly, I am inclined to say the Fearless Year of Shadow did this better, as I think he has a lot cooler and just better merch. The disc and the diorama for Luigi were cool, but not only does Shadow also have a statue, he kind of also has a music disc, though it's not the same thing, technically. Plus, the coolest thing the Year of Luigi did was definitely the L Train, and I think the Dark Rider is just objectively far cooler Plus, I'm pretty sure the real Dark Rider still exists, unlike the L Train. So, due to that fact, I think this point goes to the Fearless Year of Shadow. Okay, any form of media that is not video games, whether that's comics, manga, YouTube videos, etc. Now, I was only able to find one thing for the Year of Luigi. I would have thought there was more, but I was not able to find any sort of documentation on anything else. If there's anything else, please tell me in the comments. But anyways, Finding Luigi, Legend of Parkour. A documentary about Luigi's legendary rise to fame in parkour, featuring many guests such as... oh no... there's also these people, and some pro parkour athletes: Paul Whitecotton, Corey DeMeyers, Jesse LaFleur, Michael Frosty Zernow, Brian Nosel Orozco, and Lucy Steele Romberg. The start of this video is a documentary of the L-Man's rise to fame, highlighting his signature moves, the Cyclone, the Flying Squirrel, and the Green Missile. Then testimonials from the Toad Twins. Then we cut to an interview with the L-Man. But the documentary is missing the L-Man interview, so these two have to go finding Luigi. They learn that if they catch Nabbit, they will find Luigi, so they look for Nabbit, and Nabbit runs away. They don't catch Nabbit. They get hot dogs on a stick and in humorous fashion completely miss L-Man, who is right there. And this is entirely an advertisement for new Super Luigi U, which, yeah, it's pretty cool advertising, but not exactly the most effective, as they only show they are advertising the Wii U for about a few seconds after they already show the end on screen, and then fade to black. And also, they didn't even show the exact game they were advertising. But anyways, Sonic X Shadow Generations X Chao, a one-shot manga taking place during the events of Sonic X Shadow Generations with a story by Ian Flynn. This short story follows Shadow Chao and Sonic Chao as they go through white space saving other Chao as Sonic and Sonic go through their journey. And by the end they come across a black warrior, Shadow kills it, and Sonic and Shadow Chao become friends. And I'm not going to spoil too much about it, it's a very quick read. And on the topic of manga, Shikoku no Harunezume, Shadow the Hedgehog, or the Jet Black Hedgehog, Shadow the Hedgehog. And let's hope I pronounce the Japanese correctly. And this is a, I think, 6-chapter manga series released in Japan to promote Sonic X Shadow Generations, with a story that is based off Shadow Generations. It's not the exact story, and it's not canon. The story starts pretty similar to Shadow's origins, with a Shadow as a failed wonder drug meant to cure Maria. He struggles to find the meaning of life, Maria gets shot, yada yada yada. But after Maria's death, Shadow goes to the white space where he meets a, quote, mysterious one-eyed creature who tells him that Maria can be brought back to life if Shadow finds the 3 wishing orbs. And this is also a good read. I recommend you go find it online if you want to read it. It's pretty easy to find a translation. Some other things they did for Shadow is on Batman Day, they announced a collaboration with DC Comics showing Shadow as Batman with an animated short from Tyson Heese. This was uploaded to YouTube, and speaking of YouTube, they did a lot of things on YouTube. Let's just rapid fire them. Top 10 Shadow moments. Shadow 101, a brief history of Shadow the Hedgehog. Fearless interview with Takashi Iizuka. Describe Shadow the Hedgehog in one word. All of those are fairly self-explanatory. Something about Shadow the Hedgehog. A full animation by Terminal Montage in collaboration with Sega to promote Sonic X Shadow Generations. Paralympian Character Select Showcase has DS-style animation of a, well, Paralympian Character Select screen, featuring real-life Paralympians and what Fearless means to them, featuring a bunch of people of which I can't pronounce the names of. It's a cool little animation, and I like the detail that all of them have maxed out confidence. Also, Sonic and Shadow are just chilling at the bottom. Then we have Angry Birds X Fearless Year of Shadow, and it's an animated comic of the Angry Birds going to fight Eggman, and then Shadow appears, helps take down Eggman, Then he leaves. This is also, I think, the last thing to come out for the Fearless Year of Shadow. But the last thing on YouTube we have is easily the greatest, that being Sonic X Shadow Generations, Dark Beginnings, which is a 3-episode animated prologue for Shadow. And what I mean by animated, I mean some of the most beautiful animation I have ever seen for a piece of Sonic media, like dang. To summarize the 3 episodes, there is Shadow and Maria, released on the 25th of September, which has Shadow having a memory on the Ark with Maria. Then Emerald appears for the first time since Sonic Battle. Shadow fights Emerald. It's a very good fight, but also a very short fight. And this is a nightmare Shadow is having of his past. But ho, he is having this nightmare wide awake. And Shadow ponders if he could have survived. Then Shadow races off to find answers. Episode 2, Finding the Way, released on the 3rd of October. This episode starts on the Ark with another flashback. We see a Death Leech, we get some exposition, we go back to the present day where Shadow is attacking a bunch of samurai egg pawns at Hidden Base from Sonic Adventure 2. He meets up with Team Dark, and Rouge will take Shadow to a shuttle in exchange for Shadow going to Sonic's birthday. Then there is episode 3, the last episode, To the Ark, releasing on the 10th of October. This has Team Dark infiltrating a gun base to steal a shuttle. A blue falcon shows up to attack them. Shadow utterly destroys the mech, but not without making sure the gun soldier is safe. Then he boards the shuttle, ready to go to the Ark, and this is where it ends. But the compilation of all the episodes, we get a bonus ending, where on the Ark we see 3 eyes suddenly open and we see Black Doom, implied to have grown a new body from the Death Leech left on the Ark, which, okay, I just have to ask, how the hell has this Death Leech remained on the Ark after not only the gun raid, not only the events of Sonic Adventure 2, but also the events of Shadow the Hedgehog? You're telling me after all that, especially the gun raid, that the Death Leech was never seen and taken care of the entire time? Oh well, minor details. The rest of this series was fantastic, and I really roughly summarized it, and I suggest you go watch the series yourself. It's on YouTube for free, there is no reason not to. Though, and there was a third manga, Sonic X Shadow Tokyo Mission Episode 0, another one-shot manga written by the same person who wrote the Jet Black Hedgehog. This story has Shadow start on top of the Rainbow Bridge, where Gun asks Shadow to calmly surrender, but Shadow runs past them and ends up in Shibuya. Stops briefly as he sees a girl who looks like Maria. Gun shows up again. He attacks them, then, standing atop a destroyed gun vehicle, he spots Team Sonic. And this manga is a prequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Wait, Sonic the Hedgehog 3?! Yeah, Sonic 3, the entire reason for the Fearless Year of Shadow, according to the Izuka interview. And yes, IGN, I do agree, this movie most certainly, easily, deserves a 9. And pretty much this entire year was built up for Sonic 3. With most of us Sonic fans just begging for a trailer for this movie the entire year, until August 27th. The trailer lived up to the hype, I'm just gonna say that. And then we got another trailer on November 25th, and more advertising, such as the Christmas song. And I don't want to do a full review of this movie, maybe that'll be for another day. But I do want to give some of my thoughts on this movie. And I guess spoiler warning if you care, though it is kind of minor spoilers. First of all, easily the best Sonic movie, hands down. Maybe in the best form of Sonic media outside of the games in general. This movie is funny, surprisingly serious at times. This movie obviously introduces Shadow into the mix. Its Shadow was done extremely well. From his backstory to his character, heck, Keanu Reeves was the perfect choice to voice Shadow. And I've heard that this movie is, quote, the closest thing to a real Dragon Ball Z movie. And I've never watched Dragon Ball, but I'll just go with it. That fight scene with Super Sonic and Super Shadow was absolutely phenomenal, and they did an incredibly good job adapting Sonic Adventure 2 into a movie. Of course, They took some creative liberties, such as omitting Rouge and Amy. There is no Bio-Lizard or Space Colony Arc, just the Eclipse Cannon. Gerald isn't dead yet. And Shadow was not created by Gerald. He came from a meteorite. They also make a point to say that Shadow's life story is a parallel of Sonic's, and that if Sonic were consumed by vengeance after Longclaw died or Tom almost died, he would have ended up like Shadow. And, alright!
I'm pissing on the moon! How do you like that, Obama? I pissed on the moon, you idiot!
Couldn't leave that out. And, like I said, I don't want to go too in-depth with this movie. If you want some in-depth experience with the movie, go watch the movie, or I guess go watch someone else review the movie. And it's pretty clear this movie single-handedly wins the Fearless Year of Shadow the point. And even without the movie, the Fearless Year of Shadow would have undoubtedly won. Alright, the games that feature Year of Luigi or Fearless Year of Shadow content that are not the most important, starting with, of course, the Year of Luigi. I'm going to separate these into specific types, starting with Miiverse communities. Yeah, you remember Miiverse. Well, for 2013, we had 4 communities made for the Year of Luigi. The general Year of Luigi community, the developers room for the Year of Luigi, and a community for Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and Mario Luigi Dream Team. And speaking of just random services on the Wii U and 3D apps, perhaps on 3DS you could have had these 6 Miis sent out on Street Pass Mii Plaza. They're of Shigeru Miyamoto, Satoru Iwata, Hideki Kono, Takashi Tezuka, Kyoichi Hayashida, and Kensuke Tanabe. All of these Miis wore green clothes and a Luigi cap. And of course, for those swap note users, you can get some Luigi stationery. Now, on to the actual games. We first start off with... Okay, so Nintendo thought, how do we make our non-Luigi games more Luigi? Well, we hide him! So they took 8-bit Luigis and hid them throughout the levels. Of New Super Luigi U, let me just show you all the Acorn Plains ones. Most of the levels in Super Mario 3D World, such as Super Bell Hill, Conqueror Canyon, and Shadow Play Alley. Though you have probably seen Koopa Troopa Caves and Bowser Highway Showdown's 8-bit Luigis in a thumbnail or two. And then some in Captain Toad treasure trackers, such as Super Bell Hill, Conqueror Canyon, and Shadow Play Alley, and far fewer levels in NES Remix 2. But of course, hiding Luigis in the levels is not their only way of making these games more Luigi. There was also... With these, Nintendo took some classic Mario games and gave them a Luigi coat of paint. First, with Luigi Bros, which can be played in Super Mario 3D World after beating the game. It's just a Luigi version of the original Mario Bros, nothing special. But then, in NES Remix 2, we have Super Luigi Bros, which is just the original Mario Bros, but kinda worse, as you go left now and wait. Oh! And finally, Dr. Luigi, a fully new game which is Dr. Mario, but Luigi, with 4 3 modes. First is Operation L. This game's claim to fame is that it's classic Dr. Mario, except the pills are... Oh! Too bad I'm not good at Dr. Mario. Next is Germ Buster, Dr. Mario, except you use the gamepad's touchscreen to move the pills. Too bad I'm not good at Dr. Mario. And finally, there's Retro Remedy, which is just run-of-the-mill Dr. Mario. Too bad I'm not good at Dr. Mario. And our first things, and our final thing, are... The first of these is New Super Luigi U, and yes, this is technically a DLC, but I'm counting it as its own game, as it's sold on its own, and for my own convenience. This is New Super Mario Bros. U Hold the Mario. You go through the same adventure with two main differences. First, Luigi is the main character, with a new fourth character to replace Mario, that being Nabbit, who is essentially in easy mode since Nabbit does not take damage, but also you can't use power-ups. Then the other main difference is every level now has a new harder design, and is only 100 seconds. Which, from what I read online, is pretty mixed. Some people don't like the 100 seconds, and some think it's a nice challenge and it brings personality. I don't care, because I don't care about the new series. And that includes New Super Luigi U. But it seems a lot of people do like this game, and also a lot don't. But our next game is also technically mixed, that being Mario & Luigi Dream Team, which some people either really love it and call it one of the best games in the series, while others call it bland, and the most common issue people have with Dream Team is of course the pacing. The early game is drawn out and boring and littered with tutorials, and personally, I'd enjoyed it. And yes, I think the early game is a bit drawn out, but I still think it's fun. The gimmicks in this game are that Luigi is a little sleepy, and when he sleeps you can enter his dreams and mess with him. And in his dreams it's 2D, like inside of Bowser. And there are dreamy Luigis that can do all sorts of things, like hit things that you hit or roll up into a ball. And there are giant Luigi battles, and those are okay. A little cool, I guess, but not too special, honestly. But without getting too deep into this, I think it's a fun game and a good installment in the Mario & Luigi series, but not the best. And I guess that's all the Luigi stuff. Now on to Shadow, starting with... Alright, the first thing they had to do in the Year of Shadow was obviously putting Shadow in Sonic Superstars. I mean, look, it's Shadow. He go Chaos Control! And alright, this is just a Shadow onesie for Sonic. Sega has said before they are never making a classic Shadow. Not even for non-canon things, I guess. And come on, how can you hate an adorably edgy classic Sonic in its free Shadow onesie? Also, there was a special hat set in Angry Birds 2. But after this singular costume, we go on to... For events, we have many different events in Sonic Dash, Sonic Forces Speed Battle, and Sonic Dash Plus. All of those I don't have footage of as I was not able to do them. Nor did I really want to do them, but I did do one of the game's events. Or at least tried. The Dark Rider event, Project Shadow event, and Sonic X Shadow Generations event. The first of these events, I think, are the Project Shadow event, to coincide with the Space Colony Arc release, which in order to get here you are going to need a level 50 Team Mastery and 30 million rings. Now the rings are easy enough to get, but Team Mastery requires you to unlock and level up characters. Basically, every character starts at level 1, but you can level them up, and the combined total of every one of your character's levels is your Team Mastery. But once you get to Space Colony Arc, you can do this. And to do this event, you need to run around the Space Colony Arc like a moron, collecting 7,500 data files in order to unlock Adventure Shadow, and some other things that I personally don't care about. The next two events take place in Radical Highway, which takes 55 Team Mastery and 40 million rings. And I went here expecting to do the Sonic X Shadow Generations event to find Doom Shadow just chilling and waiting to be unlocked. But I got there and...
Worthless consumer models!
Well, maybe I could still get Doom Shadow by buying this convenient bundle and...
Damn it!
Okay, so no to that. But at least I could still get to Doom Radical Highway. I just needed to finish the main quest line, which was not too hard. Then I needed to unlock a flying character, so I had to show Neo Metal Sonic just what I'm made of. Then I could fly up to the highest point of Radical Highway, find a portal, and access Radical Highway. Overdose Edition. There's really no point to go here, other than just to see it, I guess. Also, this event, I think, also lets you get Doom's Eye as a pet when it was around. But the final event is the Dark Raider event, which lets you unlock, well, found in Radical Highway, once you do 5 tasks, such as collecting 1,000 Black Arm symbols, getting 100 Shadow Medals from time trials, and level up a character mastery 5 times. Then you get the Dark Rider, though the original tasks for the event were a bit different, and I do think these events were not that fun, honestly, and I would never want to do these again. But maybe I could talk about my distaste of Sonic Speed Sim in a future video. And finally, for the events, there was the Unleashing the Shadow tournament in Angry Birds Friends. And finally we have... This is a Shadow-themed update for Sonic Dream Team, which I can't play since I don't have Apple Arcade. So all I can say is I heard it's good. It adds Shadow, a 4th playable character, with Chaos Control and Chaos Shift, with a few new Shadow-themed stages, I think. But that's about it for both. I think it's pretty easy. This point is going to the Year of Luigi. Mario and Luigi Dream Team is hard carrying that year. Plus, the events in Sonic Speed Sim, and just how much more limited some of this stuff is, are really bringing down the fearless Year of Shadow for me.
Hey, I did it. Yeah.
This is what I would say is the most important segment of the video, as it is comparing the two biggest things of these 2 years, bar Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And due to the importance, this round is worth 2 points for the winning year. And we will split this segment into its own little mini segments, starting with... 12 years after the first, we get the sequel of Luigi's Mansion. And, well, the story is simple, just like the OG. It starts with Professor Egad doing some stuff with his new ghost pals in Nevershade Valley. But oh no, this mysterious monarch, I bet it's King Cthulhu, comes by to destroy the Dark Moon, scattering it across the land and making the ghosts go berserk. So, cut to Luigi's Mansion, looks like he got the D rank, and oh look, continuity! And then Egad pops up on screen, sucks up Luigi with his new pixelator, and forces Luigi on another ghost hunting adventure, where he goes through 5 mansions of Evershade Valley to collect the pieces of the Dark Moon while uncovering a far more sinister plot, in which we learn Mario is kidnapped again, and wait, that's not King Cthulhu, that's King Boo! I like that. I love that guy. But the actual adventure is quite different than the first. First of all, the ghost catching is very different. Instead of just shining your light at the ghosts, you need to charge up the new strobe bulb in order to flash them and stun them, which you can even do this when they disappear. And then there is the power surge, where if you're able to hold on to the ghost for long enough, you can do the power surge and take away a lot of the ghost's health, as well as getting you some money depending on the level of the power surge you did. Which, these 2 things definitely make catching ghosts a whole lot easier, but also a lot more streamlined, which can be good and bad, depending on how much you like the OG ghost catching. Also the music, it is such a different vibe than the original, just take a listen. And I don't think either soundtracks are bad. In fact, both are very good. Just, I guess the OG's more iconic, though some Dark Moon songs, mainly Library Piano, are just as iconic in their own right. Another big difference is the mansion structure. In the OG, it was far more open. As in the original, you go around to catch the portrait ghosts or solve puzzles, to get you keys to more rooms, to catch more ghosts, or solve more puzzles. Explore more of the mansion until you catch one of the area bosses, Chauncey, Bogmire, Colossus, and King Boo. Where, after catching them, you go back to Egad's lab to put away all your spoils. And then, go back to catch more ghosts. Dark Moon has a mission structure and 5 mansions: Gloomy Manor, Haunted Towers, Old Clockwork, Secret Mine, and Treacherous Mansion. Wait. Each mansion, in quotations, has 6 missions, except Secret Mine has 4 for some reason. These missions range from get the poltergeist, clean up spiderwebs, get to the pole to get the key back from Polterpup, find the almighty Minute Hand, get the almighty Minute Hand back from Megamind, rescue Toad, rescue Toad, rescue Toad, rescue Toads, and stop the end of the world as we know it. There are also secret 7th or 5th missions for each mansion, those being gradual infiltration, hostile intrusion, outlandish interruption, severe infestation, and terrifying invasion. Wait. These missions have you run around the mansion quickly, catching ghosts before time runs out. You will go up against the ghosts you encountered in the previous missions for that mansion. So Gloomy Manor has you fight greenies, slammers, hiders, and the greenie variants. But then Haunted Towers will then of course add creepers and gobbers into the mix. And of course each mansion has a boss mission. And hey, you want to see me scare every Dark Moon fan? Want to see me do it again? Anyways, each of these levels are built up with you exploring the mansion to get to a specific point where a piece of the Dark Moon is. And turns out each one is held by a possessor, each looking identical except them having exponentially more horns. There are 5, with the Grouchy Possessor, Harsh Possessor, Overset Possessor, Shrewd Possessor, and Tough Possessor. Wait. Alright, last time. We have 7 bosses, though, with the possessors each possessing, respectively, a spider, the stairs, the clock tower, ice, and multiple suits of armor. Big Boo, that's not Boo Losses, apparently the difference is 5 Boos. And then, of course, the last boss with King Boo. And I think the bosses are fun, except these 2, just for different reasons. And the mansions themselves, despite only 2 actually being mansions, with a debatable 3rd, each mansion is fun to go through, and they all have their own little themes keeping them interesting. There's Gloomy Manor, just your basic haunted mansion, though with a massive spider infestation, and it's the tutorial mansion. Haunted Towers, which are 2 overgrown stone towers built next to a giant tree. Next is Old Clockworks, which is an old clockwork factory, and it's decrepit and ravaged by the sand. Then Secret Mine, mine with a snow resort and a quarry containing powerful crystals. Then finally, Treacherous Mansion is a museum of exhibits based on the past 4 mansions and a couple new themes. And the puzzles for these mansions are not only themed around each mansion's, theme, but also utilize sucking up and blowing with the poltergeist. Using the strobe bulb for these switches, picking up, placing, and shooting things, and using the new dark light to reveal things that are hidden. With the themed puzzles having things like using fire to burn spiderwebs, balloon berries, sand and time, ice, and Treacherous Mansion just has most of that. And I think this is a pretty solid game, probably my least favorite in the series, but still a really good game. Dark Moon is very different than the OG Luigi's Mansion, but it's not bad. Dark Moon does its own thing with the mission-based structure and removing portrait ghosts, and the elemental metals, and adding the strobe bulb and the dark light. But I think that's good. I really enjoy this game. I think that's enough about Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. So on October 25th, we got Sonic X Shadow Generations. And it's not just about Shadow. This is of course a remake of my personal favorite Sonic game, Sonic Generations. And well, calling this a remake is stretching it. This is just the same game with a couple new additions tacked on, that I will quickly go over and move on. Both modern and classic Sonic now have a drop dash. There are 3 hidden Chao in each level you can collect. There's improved graphics, though I'm having a hard time noticing them. You can have Sonic Adventure and Sonic Jam skins for Modern and Classic. 2 cutscenes were reanimated, and there's a controversial script rewrite by Ian Flynn. Oh, and the song Right There, Right On was replaced with Westopolis, due to, I think, licensing issues. Everything else is just Sonic Generations, which is fine. Sonic Generations is still a fantastic game. It's just, I kinda wish they added more so there was a reason to play this over the more moddable original generations. But let's just head over to Shadow Gens. The main attraction of Sonic X Shadow Generations as both a sequel to Shadow 05, but also a prequel to Sonic Generations. Of course, starring Shadow. The story starts right after Dark Beginnings with Shadow aboard the Ark. He searches the Ark and encounters Doom's Eye, who then brings him to a trippy radical highway which is known as the Doom Zone. And the summary for the rest of this story is Shadow is taken to his own white space and he has to face the ghosts of his past and future, and defeat Black Doom, who continues to torment Shadow throughout the game. And Shadow reunites with the past Maria and Gerald, brought to the white space by, I assume, the Time Eater, but it could have been Black Doom. The game ends with Shadow almost overcome by hatred and corrupted by the Doom powers, but Maria quells his anger, leaving Shadow to obtain the Doom Wings, let go of that destructive anger, and fly into the Black Moon, which has fully mutated and pulled the white space into the Doom Zone. Shadow goes through Radical Highway, then comes face to face with Black Doom. He defeats him, loses the Doom powers. Shadow reunites with Gerald and Maria one last time. They disappear. Shadow tries to stop it, but is convinced to move on by Maria, ending with Shadow skating away crying. And of course, this story has quite a lot more to it. But this video is already long enough, so I don't want to get too detailed. Just know it's a really great story that serves to not only teach us more about Shadow the Hedgehog, but also be an introduction to Game Shadow for the new fans coming in for the movies. And I think it does a very good job at that. There are 6 stages in this game, each with 2 acts, so 12 levels, and most following the same structure of Act 1 is entirely 3D and Act 2 is entirely 2D, which is brilliant. I love having levels that are entirely 3D or 2D instead of constantly swapping. In fact, there's only one swap in the entire game, that being the transition to Phase 2 when Metal Overlords fight. And these levels are some of the best boost levels in the entire series, rivaling both the OG Generations levels and Sonic Unleashed boost stages. And the 3D stages are a lot longer than the stages in Sonic Generations, so despite there only being 6, the game actually takes around the same amount of time as Sonic Gen's 9 stages with 2 acts, so 18 levels for OG Gens. The stages are also past locations that all have importance to Shadow. Well, most. Space Colony Arc from Sonic Adventure 2 is where Shadow's created, where he met Maria, where the gun raid happened, where a lot of events in Sonic Adventure 2 take place, where he died, where a lot of events in Shadow 05 take place. You get the idea. This place is very important to Shadow. Rail Canyon is where Shadow first learns of the Shadow androids. Kingdom Valley from Sonic 06 is where Shadow first met Mephiles the Dark, leading to the rest of his story in 06. Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces is more of a stretch, but the location of City is a little more important to Shadow in the events of Sonic Forces, with enemy territory being where he has a little reunion with Infinite. But Sunset Heights specifically just has Shadow roundhouse kick himself and start explaining the powers of the Phantom Ruby, though these events haven't happened yet. And Black Doom repeatedly takes Shadow to Radical Highway to torment Shadow by taking him back to his darkest moment. And then there is Chaos Island. You see, it's important to Shadow because Sonic Team was running out of time for assets and Sonic Frontiers was right there. And gameplay-wise, this game is mostly based off Sonic Frontiers. I mean, heck, you can find the Stomp Bounce and the Drop Dash in the game files still. But Shadow has the additional move set of Chaos Control to freeze time, Chaos Snap, which is a replacement for the homing attack, though it's a teleport so Shadow can go through things like walls and lasers, Doom Spear to shoot spears to up to 5 targets, Doom Blast to punch a black-armed soldier, Doom Blast to kick enemies up into the air, kick them away and teleport to them, Doom Surf to surf across the water, Doom Morph to become a squid and swim through whatever this is, and swing off whatever those are, and then Doom Wings. This is a replacement for Super Shadow, and I think all these abilities are very well implemented. I don't think there's a single bad one. They're all really fun in their own right, and the physics in this game are probably the best physics a Sonic game, or at least a Boo Sonic game, has ever had. All the other ones have their issues, but I don't really have any issues with Shadow Gen's physics. Oh, and then there is the bosses, with 4, the same amount as Sonic Gens, but Shadow Gens lacks rival battles. The bosses, of course, also have some sort of significance to Shadow, with the Bio-Lizard from Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow's brother, and the original fight is, of course, when Shadow properly remembered Maria's wish and he vowed to protect the planet, Metal Overlord from Heroes, and I never played Sonic Heroes, so I don't know what his significance to Shadow is, if he even has any. Then there's, of course, Mephiles from 06, the only one to really get true character development besides the final boss, with Mephiles knowing that he is no longer a part of the timeline, making him far more desperate to restore himself to the timeline, evident by Mephiles immediately going for the Sonic Killer. But Shadow's too cool to be taken down like that, and Shadow does not remember Mephiles. He is just some random obstacle to him. The last boss is Devil Doom from Shadow 05, but with a new phase being Neo Devil Doom, and do I really have to explain the significance of Black Doom? He is literally Shadow's dad, kind of. And throughout the entire game, he has been tormenting Shadow and perfecting him with the Doom powers so he can take over his mind and become the perfect being. And this game is, of course, chock full of references, whether it be locations and levels, quotes.
Dance, my shadows, dance!
Dance, my shadows, dance!
Drown in darkness!
Drown in darkness!
Referencing the opening of Shadow the Hedgehog, and a lot more to really just pour so much love into this game, and just go all out to celebrate the history of Shadow the Hedgehog. And you know what? I'm a sucker for references. I just love when something puts something in my face and I can go, oh, it's the thing! Then finally, there's the DLC. Not only did we get things like a Terios skin for buying the Digital Deluxe, Terios being Shadow's scrap design, we got extra music to play in the levels, a pretty useless digital art book plus mini soundtrack that nobody really likes, and then on December 12th we got a new DLC level and skin for Sonic Movie 3, that being Tokyo, which plays a remix of Westopolis. So Eastopolis. But this is a single act level that's 3D and has Shadow go to the movie universe where he becomes Movie Shadow and is voiced by Keanu Reeves, which people were a little worried about Keanu Reeves' Shadow after this, as the DLC does not have the best voice acting. But this level itself is really great, even if it has 2 really long unskippable cutscenes pretty much, though they are pretty cool. And the Movie Shadow skin cannot be taken out of this level, which is a bummer, but it's not that big of an issue, I guess. And the rest I could say for Shadow Gens is the white space is really fun to run around in, the side content is pretty fun, and it's probably my new favorite Sonic game. So, on to giving out the points, I want you to keep in mind I am trying to grade these games based on how good of a game they are for a year-long celebration of their respective characters. As anything else, like giving Shadow Gens the points based on gameplay, would just be stupid and unfair, especially because of my very big Sonic game bias. But even then, the Fearless Year of Shadow gets the points. As well, I think Dark Moon is a very good game, but it's not the best game to celebrate Luigi, other than the fact a sequel to Luigi's Mansion is a pretty obvious thing to do in a year dedicated towards Luigi, whereas Shadow Gens is literally entirely about celebrating Shadow the Hedgehog, and it does a damn good job doing so. And I guess that means our winner for the better year is obviously the Fearless Year of Shadow. If you came into this video thinking the Year of Luigi was going to win, well, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. But there's still one last thing I want to talk about. Okay, so this segment is going to mostly be for the Year of Luigi, and it's not going to reward any points. I just want to talk about the times Nintendo has referenced the Year of Luigi past 2013, starting with in one of the Mario Kart 8 Directs the following year. At one point, Mario is shown winning a race against Luigi, and the announcer says,
It's Mario! He's taking his victory lap, and boy, that must feel like eating a super mushroom. I guess the Year of Luigi really is over.
Next, in Smash for Wii U, there are two references. First, Luigi's trophy, which states the Year of Luigi just made Luigi even more shy and awkward. And it's referenced in the Palutena's Guidance Easter egg.
Look, it's Luigi!
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Oh, don't say that. After all, he even had his own year.
I don't remember that. Though I suppose if he's number 2 out of all these fighters, that's actually pretty good.
His attacks are no joke.
You're right. Have you seen his super jump punch and green missile? In some ways, he might even be stronger than his brother. Too bad about that unfortunate L on his forehead.
I'm sure that stands for winning.
And that was carried over into Smash Ultimate. And finally, in Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, at one point in the story, Starlo has to cheer up Luigi, and she mentions the Year of Luigi. And you know what? It's nice to note that despite Nintendo still likes to reference the Year of Luigi. In fact, for the release of Luigi's Mansion 3, Nintendo did a month of Luigi during October, which was fun and a very obvious reference to the Year of Luigi. And it's currently too early to have that many future references for the Fearless Year of Shadow. So, I guess I'll just talk about how after the Fearless Year of Shadow did so well, a lot of Sonic fans now want years for other characters as well, which I mostly agree with, though they definitely have to space them out a bit if they want to do that. The most popular candidates for online discourse I found are Amy, Silver, Blaze, and Metal Sonic. And I think the two most likely would be Amy and Metal Sonic due to them going to be in Sonic Movie 4. And personally, I'm rooting for Metal Sonic. But that's about it. While both of these years are pretty beloved in their own right, the Year of Luigi is mainly just a year to look back on and think, that's a pretty decent year. And then maybe reminisce for a bit before moving on. But the Fearless Year of Shadow is definitely going to have a long-lasting effect on the Sonic community, not only being possibly one of the best or the best year for Sonic fans just ever. It restored a lot of faith in both Sonic Team and Sega thanks to the fantastic game that was Sonic X Shadow Generations, and it helped to quell some of the still lasting trauma that Sonic Forces put on the Sonic community. And I think both have their merits, of course, but I think the Fearless Year of Shadow just blows the Year of Luigi out of the water. And it's a good thing there's not a third popular video game character who has their own year. That would have made this video take so much longer. If this video gets half the likes of the last one, I will cover the year of Eevee and put it against these 2 years at the end of this one.